let's go to the man of the moment here, John DeFries, my long time Hanabata Days chum. He went to the school that started with a P. I went to the school that started with an I. But nonetheless, we did see the eye to eye on many things through the years. And I remember very fondly, he was very instrumental in helping my brother, Nephi, who's is an entertainer during the heyday of live showrooms in Waikiki with Don Ho, Society of Seven, Nephi, Dick Jensen. He was in the tour business then, and his job was very critical to the success of all the showrooms, was bringing the tourists to take in these entertainment. And then, of course, through the years and his great work in the community, he's with NAHA, for example, most recently, before he became the HTA head. And last year, he was a star of our general membership meeting at the Western Hapuna when he shared his mana'o on Mauna Kea. Many of you said, thank you, thank you, thank you. Mahalo for having John come in and open up my understanding and appreciation of what that is all about and what it can mean for our future, but most importantly, tying it to the past. So without further ado, let me turn it over to John DeFries, who's heading up the most important tourism organization in the state that interfaces with government, because it is a government agency, but most importantly, he knows, and he's already been doing it, working very closely with the private sector entity like us to help bring back tourism. Mahalo, John. Thank you for being here with us.
Mufi, thank you for having me. It's difficult to comprehend that a whole year has passed since we were all at Hapuna. And at that time, my topic centered around Mauna Kea and my advocacy for modern astronomy. More specifically, how modern astronomy and Hawaiian cultural practices could actually coexist and create a offspring initiatives from that. And I'm happy to report and update you that since then, the program has moved forward where the new discoveries on Mauna Kea now have a protocol to go to in terms of naming these discoveries, not only in Hawaiian, but consistent with the creation chant. And I look to that program to just grow over time so that there'll come a day when grade school children will name insignificant asteroids and PhD candidates will be joining Kupuna to name new planets and new galaxies. And so that was a topic a year ago. And then 2 years ago, I asked for a tour of Jefferson Elementary School. I was a student at Jefferson back in the day and entered in kindergarten and left after the 6th grade. But I was curious as to where elementary education was. I'm not raising children of my own. And so that part of my life, was a void. And so I paid a call on Principal Zakara. I had seen some of the hydroponics and ecosystems that they had developed on the campus. And so he took me on a tour and in the exact classrooms where I was finger painting as a young child, I was observing children in robotics classes, operating 3D printers, and actually 3D printing the components to build their robots, right? And so what I was appreciating was this incredible leap that public education had taken during my lifetime. And all it did was make me even more convinced that initiatives like the 30-meter telescope and the growth of modern astronomy were the kinds of activities and industries that would serve to stimulate the minds of our local kids. Now, let's translate that back to our core industry here. I'm encouraged by the comments of Paul Yunamine in terms of tourism being a hub. I spent the morning up at the UH Innovations Conference, sharing a panel with the Commander of the Pacific Fleet, and Bob Harrison from First Hawaiian Bank, and Paul Yokota from FCS and Zippies. And naturally, the conversation centered around tourism as well as economic diversification. And one of the messages I was intent on delivering was beginning in all of my professional career and adult life, in Hawaii in particular, we've always juxtaposed tourism as the antithesis of economic diversification, when in fact, there's evidence that tourism has been driving economic diversification, and to Paul's point, needs to continue to do that in much more specific ways. It becomes most obvious when you start to look at just a hotel. When you open a hotel, what you see is a collection of diversified businesses, right? You have an accounting business, you have a food and beverage business, you have a landscape business. And so we tend to oversimplify it sometimes, but general managers happen to be multitaskers at a mega level, having to run what may amount to being 9 or 10 businesses under one domain that we refer to as a hotel. That particular environment for Hawaii has actually supplanted the kinds of vocational training that was available when we were in school, Mufi, where people could pursue training in plumbing or construction or auto mechanics. And with the decline of those kinds of vocational training centers, the hotel actually has become a center of vocational training for those who have either decided to skip higher education or defer higher education. So the presence of tourism as a hub can be felt there. You've also been a driver of diversification in the performing arts, whether that be culturally Hawaiian, whether that be jazz, whether it be all genres of the performing arts and entertainment. The hotel industry has been the driver of that diversification. The most obvious example comes from the culinary arts. And the decision by some of the top chefs over the last 25 years, many of whom started or continue to work in your hotels statewide, who made a commitment to Pacific Rim cuisine, to farm to table, that then began to shape the agricultural sector on every island, as well as the commercial fishermen. And that continues to be one of the brand elements that distinguishes Hawaii, is this culinary arm. The other one that often gets dismissed is really the second home community, the high-end luxury second home community, whether it be Kukui'ula on Kauai, Kapalua, Wailea Makena on Maui, Mauna Kea, Hualalai, Hokulea on Hawaii Island. These are all byproducts and outgrowths of tourism. People who now reside there in second homes, many of them who are movers and shakers on a global level in terms of industry leaders, now find their second home, and in some cases, becoming their primary home. All of that happened as an outgrowth of first visiting one of your hotels, coming back annually, taking a look at your real estate portfolio and offerings, and eventually making the decision to, in many cases, make a legacy buy for their families so that their children and grandchildren will have a place to stay. So I think that it behooves us in our communications with the community to understand that, in fact, tourism is driving a lot of the diversification that we're experiencing and benefiting right now. And to that end, I'm extremely grateful to the members of HLTA. Today, I believe, is day 58 of my taking over at HTA, but who's actually counting. It's been an exciting first 2 months for me. I've enjoyed being able to work with Mufi and the other leaders in our industry, and look forward to continuing a long-term partnership to keep leveraging the importance and the growth of our industry as we move forward. And with that, Mufi, I'll turn it back over to you. And thank you for the time.
Oh, absolutely. So we got a couple questions for you, John. One is someone wants you to explain in your theme that you've put forward, the Malama campaign, everything from Malama Mass to the concept now that you've basically have put before all of us of how you see tying the culture to what you see as the leader of our hospitality industry and the various campaigns attached to Malama.
Sure, thank you. You know, when prior to stepping in and on September 16th and reflecting upon, you know, the taking over that responsibility, for me, it was important to establish an organizing principle, one in a Hawaiian cultural value, having been raised in a Hawaiian family that was steeped in the culture. And what kept coming to me was this Hawaiian value of malama, to protect, to nurture, to care for. And malama is not a Hawaiian behavioral pattern. It is, in fact, a universal behavioral pattern that human beings, we have the capacity to love, and the things we love the most, we will take care of, we will protect. What we all have in common on this at this meeting is all of us have a deep-seated love for Hawaii and its people. And so the idea of Malama was to further this, this expression and this practice. When we often talk about Malama, we talk about it in the context of natural resources, Malama Aina, Malama Kekai, the ocean. But this is really about us during a pandemic. I Malama you, and you Malama me. And that whole practice is also an effort to grow out into the visitor, that we need to understand that it's our responsibility to Malama the visitor, to ensure that our settings, our hospitality settings, are safe working environments for our local people as well as the visitor. But in addition to our ability to Malama the visitor, we also have a responsibility to educate the visitor on how to Malama us, and us as a place and us as a people. And this sets up a relationship of reciprocity, which is really the basis of our Kama'aina lifestyle that was established and built on aloha. And in many respects, Malama becomes the sister Hawaiian cultural value to aloha moving forward.
Thank you. Here's your final question, John. One of our members wants to know, what do you see as your greatest challenge for the industry going forward here? Is it the continuing refinement of the testing program that some have seen as an obstacle to bringing tourists here, yet it's necessary? Is it funding now that TAT is not being collected? Or thirdly, striking that balance between those who feel that there are too many tourists in our community, yet a recognition that we need to manage it better, and things that you've always promoted from your cultural expertise.
You know, the immediate answer, the short answer is all of the above, right? It's everything that you mentioned. But let me just, you know, since being at HTA, I've talked to people who aspire to 6 million visitors annually. I talk to those who aspire to north of 13 million, right? And at the moment, I'm not kind of focused on either one of those numbers. The one number that sticks out in my mind is July, this past July, when the number was 0. That number captured my attention. The other number that attracts me is 17.6 billion in visitor expenditures. Frankly, if we could achieve that or go north of that with fewer visitors, that would be a viable model to look at. You know, I was inspired by Paul's reference to something closer to 15 million annually, right? It comes down to when you live on an island and you've got limited natural resources, It comes down to how we protect those resources, allow them to regenerate when it's their turn to reproduce and recover from whatever kind of human impact there is. But we also need to learn how to share it. And I'll give you one example that I encourage to stimulate community discussion. When all of us on this call go on vacation, and when people come here on vacation, every day is a weekend. For the local people, every day is not a weekend. And in areas where there is a collision and overcrowding, local communities feeling overrun by visitors, we may have to give serious thought to encourage that community to think about whether or not certain places on weekends should be local residents only. If I am a responsible visitor and I know that those are the rules, I can go on Friday, I can go on Monday and Sunday, if that would provide the local community its opportunity to regenerate and rejuvenate itself. Those are not decisions that HTA or the governor will make. Those are decisions and dialogue that the communities need to have in shaping the future of tourism going forward. So I would leave it at that, Mufi.
All right. Well, John, thank you so much. I know you two are on a very tight schedule. We thank you for the continuing partnership. Plaudits to you for initiating meetings with us, with the various county mayors. We've now gone the whole route. We've met every mayor in every county, and I know we're going to continue that. So it's a very strong response from our industry of being able to hear firsthand and ask their questions from, I've always said, the starting five of basketball. They're leading our state. So thank you so much, brother. And
Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you,
Mahalo.
Mufi. Aloha.